What's going on? Thanks for checking in. The spring is officially upon us. We're starting to go to our in-season training here at the facility. Hopefully you made some crazy off-season gains and you want to keep them, right? So today we're discussing how to build out a training program for in-season and what you need to be doing. Make sure you stay tuned. Check this one out. All right, so where do you take your training? Do you keep doing what you've been doing the entire off-season? Do you stop training altogether? What do you do? Here at the facility, every spring when season starts to pick up, we lose a lot of clientele because parents call in. They're like, hey, it's too much for little Johnny to, wake up early, go to training, go to school, go to the game. They're getting home late, not getting enough efficient sleep, etc. So we lose a lot of clients, and I don't think the idea is out there that you should prioritize your training during the season. So with this video, I wanted to change that. And I'm gonna be blunt with you. It may come off a little harsh, but this is just the reality of it. If that is your mentality, if you're a student in high school and don't think that you have time to come in to train, don't think you can recover from that training, think you're gonna be dragged down throughout the season, you have no shot at playing college baseball or softball. Plain and simple. When you go to college, you're gonna be expected to do a lot worse, right? Those 15-minute bus rides to an away game in high school may turn into, 6-hour plane flights in college. Then you gotta take a red eye back to campus and show up for class next morning at 9 a.m. So bottom line, in high school, man, if you're not willing to put in the work, willing to grind, you think it's too much, you're gonna be in a rude awakening if you get an opportunity to go to college. A typical story for me, I went to the University of Rhode Island. We had a weekend series at Arizona. That was a 6.5-hour plane flight. We left on a Thursday, played Friday, Saturday, Sunday, left on a red eye after that game on Sunday, didn't get back to campus till 6 a.m. that following Monday, and I had one of the biggest tests of my life that morning at 9 a.m. Pulled an all-nighter, ended up passing the test. That's the kind of stuff that you gotta do if you're trying to play at the next level. So if you can't do it in high school, fortunately, you're not gonna have any shot when you go to college. So if you didn't get the point, right? If you're not training in season, it's a massive mistake. It goes back to the age-old term, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. If you spend the entire offseason building, you're gonna go throughout the season. The bat's gonna feel a whole lot heavier. Balls aren't gonna start coming off as hard as they used to, right? You may lose a step defensively. You're not gonna recover better after the games. You're gonna notice a massive decline every series, every week throughout the season, if you aren't training to maintain those gains that you got in the off season. But on the other side of it, right, if you're a grinder, you're overworking yourself, overtraining, you're gonna end up burning yourself out and still, running into those same issues of not training altogether throughout the season. So you need to find that happy medium. And where is that happy medium? It all starts with managing your workload and understanding a couple different things. Hey, what buckets are being filled when, I'm showing up for early work before games? We're taking BP, doing our dynamic warm-ups every day before games, the entire game in general, right? The weekend series. What buckets are being filled there that I can pull away from the other training that I need to be doing? Alrighty, so what buckets, right? What do I mean by what buckets are being filled and what buckets are not being filled? This is gonna sway depending on what position you play, how much playing time that you're getting, pitcher, hitter, etc., right? But this bucket will call what we're getting on the field, what we're getting in practice, what we're getting in the games, right? This bucket is what we're not getting. So if you think about the sport of baseball during the season, what do you typically do, right? You show up to the park, do a dynamic warm-up, you hit BP, you throw, you shag fly balls, and then during the game you may hit a couple, max effort swings, obviously. You're gonna run the bases. You may go, sprint after a couple fly balls. So what bucket is being filled to the peak on a baseball field? You can basically say maybe some moderate, low intensity plyometrics. So we can say low intent plyos. So what that means is in our bucket that we're not getting, we can scratch out those low intensity plyometrics, right? May not have to do, long duration pogos, hops, skips, etc., because we're already getting that on the field. Another thing that comes to mind, right? Any type of endurance training. You're out at the field all day. I don't think you need to, I think that bucket's being filled, right? There may be a couple other components that you could think of. Starting pitcher, you're getting a lot of rotational work in. Hey, starting pitcher, arms coming through, you probably shouldn't go crazy heavy on your pressing movements, but you should, add some pulling movements because the arm's accelerating. So we need to work on that eccentrics throughout the season. So here's the bucket. What bucket is not being filled would be a lot of high contraction power movements. So power movements is the big thing, right? You're out at the field, a lot of that stuff's gonna be low intensity except for in-game scenarios, but you may, take hard swings 3 times throughout a game. You may go after an explosive sprint 1 ball. You may leg out 1 double, 1 single. So for the most part, your power work isn't getting accomplished. That bucket's not being filled. And then the biggest one that's not being filled, and the first thing you're gonna lose throughout the season, is your strength, right? So there may be a few more that you can dial in on and say, hey, this is what I'm getting throughout the season. But for this, we'll go our endurance bucket's full throughout practice, throughout pregame, throughout the game, throughout the series, and then your low intensity plyos. Our buckets that aren't being filled is our strength and power. So now you have to realize your schedule. High school is gonna be a little bit different. Some high schools only play 20 games a year, right? You go to college, now you're playing 52, 56, etc., depending on Division I, Division II, Division III. So you need to know what your schedule is. You need to know, your position, your role on the team, how much playing time you're expected to get. If you're a bench player, redshirting, or a freshman that's probably not going to get many opportunities that year, you need to keep grinding. You need to keep building. I would treat that like an off season almost, especially if you're not on the travel roster. But looking at a typical college game week, this is what it looks like. Monday is historically the college off day. Tuesday is a midweek game, whether that be a home or a short road week. Wednesday, you're off. Thursday is either a travel day if you're traveling to a different university, or that's an off day if you're home. Then your weekend, right? You got your Friday, your Saturday, your Sunday, game 1, game 2, game 3. Most important, this is going to be your conference games. So these 3 games are held to a higher standard than the Tuesday game. So what does an in-season training split look like? I stole this from the man Scott Leach. He's the best strength coach I ever had in baseball, right? And this is the split that kept guys strong throughout the entire year. That team, they're a bunch of savages at Rhode Island. So, and this is the split that he ran. So a hitter, this is what we would do. Monday, we'd keep the low day low. We would take an off day. That's recovering from a big travel day, etc. This Tuesday game, if you're a hitter and you're a starter, you're gonna play that game, so it may be hard to get in a weight room. This Wednesday would be a makeup lift if you can't lift after that game. Ideally, you would want to keep your high days high and your low days low. So ideally, you would want to hit a heavy lift on that Tuesday, but how realistic is that if it ends late, right? So we can make up that lift on Wednesday. This is going to be a relatively heavy lift, not crazy, like 45 minutes to an hour, and you're also going to make a high priority on power training. So right here, what you could do is some contrast training, some post-activation potentiation. Hit a heavy lift, go into a reverse band jump, and then go into, a regular vertical jump, etc. You're trying to build those high contraction velos, but you're still trying to lift a little heavy to get that heavier stimulus. Then On Thursday, this is to prime your central nervous system. This is where you can do some high intensity plyometrics, some med ball throws, etc. Because you need to be ready to go this weekend series on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? And then on that Sunday, a lot of times that's an early game if you're home or away, because that opposing team needs to travel that day. So if this is an early game on Sunday and you're home, or if you get a chance to lift heavy, this should be your heaviest lift of the week, right? So right here, the research says in order to maintain strength, you need to be hitting at least 80% of your numbers. However, strength does stick around for around 30 or so days. So don't go crazy with it. Hit a couple sets of 3 to 5 reps of, 80% of your 1 rep max on your main movers, on your main lifts, like a split squat, pin squat, maybe hit some presses, etc. That's gonna keep you strong throughout the year. So that's the split. If you're a hitter, that would be the ideal one. If you're a starting pitcher, this is gonna differ. Relievers we won't discuss, because that's all about just staying ready. You don't know when you're gonna go. You may be green, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Just depends. But if you're a starting pitcher, you're the guy on the squad hitting that Friday start, this is what your off-season training split should look like. Monday, keep the off day. Tuesday should be, a relatively heavy lift, but it should be like the Tuesday or Wednesday lift and power a hitter would be. Your high contraction velo stuff, your contrast sets, etc. Then on Wednesday, this is gonna be another lift. You can go a little bit heavier here. Just adjust the training based on, how you're feeling. So these are back-to-back lifts. I would go maybe a lower body lift and an upper body lift, or an upper body lift and a lower body lift. I wouldn't go 2 full body days back to back. Thursday, that's gonna be the same. That's gonna be a central nervous system primer to, kickstart the nervous system before your big game, which is on Friday. Then on Saturday, mostly gonna be in dugout for the game, right? If Saturday, when we would travel to places, we would find a gym close to the stadium. Sometimes the other universities would let us go into their weight room, and our pitchers would hit the heaviest day of the week on that Saturday if they're a Friday starter, because then they would get an entire week to recover from that. So this Saturday should be your heaviest lift of the week. Then on Sunday is more regenerative work. So you're just elevating your heart rate, doing mobility exercises to get you ready for that plane flight home, that bus flight home, or if you're home, just to regenerate yourself before the start of the week. So that's what I would do, if I was a starting pitcher. All right, that's a wrap. First and foremost, right, take a look at your role on the team, the position, figure out your schedule throughout the season, what buckets are getting filled and what buckets aren't, and adjust your training based on that. Everybody's gonna have slight differences, but if you follow that split, especially if you're in college, you're gonna be set up for success, and you're gonna maintain and maybe even build upon those gains you did in the off season. If you're in high school, man, playing, 20 or so games, and you're that young, your nervous system is able to recover a lot quicker. So make sure you're not taking that entire season off of training. If you don't use it, you lose it. And like I said earlier on in the video, you have no shot at playing college if you're not doing those things. It gets a whole lot harder when you get to the next level. And I know it was an overview. I didn't really dive that deep into the workouts, but lucky for you, right, I have an in-season training program available. I'll throw that in the description below. And I'm putting it on 50% off to kickstart the season. So go ahead, grab that in the description below. And you know the stitch, right? I pump out 2 of these videos per week, so do me a favor and subscribe for me. I appreciate you. Catch you next week. Game rewards the grind. It knows how much you've invested.